Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Happy Tuesday, January 2nd. So happy to be here. I keep messing up 2023 and 2024 already, but we're ready to tune in and get it rocking. Before we go into what happened with Michigan, Alabama, Texas, Washington, we're going to welcome our co-host of the show, the main event, the guy who has a face for radio, and now we know he looks better in low definition. Let's pull him up right now, guys. Welcome to the show, Brent Chapman.
Happy New Year, Brandon.
Happy New Year to you, Brent.
Brandon, today is Tuesday, but do you know what yesterday was? Yesterday was Monday.
Buffalo
Monday.
I'm not even a Buffalo Bills fan, but you know what? I love that. And I really enjoy that because the Bills are playing great. Every time we miss a Monday, I feel bad for you because I know you want to get that off.
Oh, I do it anyways. I just walk around the house yelling, "It's Buffalo Monday."
Well, you know what, Brent? We got so much to talk about. Heading into the new year, a lot of people are traveling, just getting here, jumping in the live, enjoying the show. But the truth is, a lot of new things are happening, right? We come up with some resolutions this year. How many people will dive into those resolutions for the first month and then give up on them after a while? So I hope everyone watching this is going to start the resolutions, stick to them, stay focused, and accomplish new goals this year.
Amen.
That's my idea. But let's get into this. Brent, you know, this is one thing I want to say. After coming into the new year, the games have been crazy. The teams that have been playing have been crazy. NFL, college, it's been really interesting. Injuries. I mean, this has been a really roller coaster season for a lot of teams. And Michigan, Alabama, that game was crazy. And now we have Michigan, Washington. I mean, when you see these two teams, do you think they belong there? And who do you think, what do you think right now that these two were in there? Anything different than you thought before?
Well, Brandon, first of all, as we've talked before in the show, I went to high school in the Detroit area, and I grew up watching Michigan football. So I was not confident. I told you my gut felt that Alabama would, Mick Saban would do it again, but he didn't, and Michigan won, and it was awesome, and the way that it happened was awesome.
Listen,
but yeah, go ahead.
Brent, when I pull this clip up, well, first off, let me just do this. This is what I think right now is going on. This graphic, because Mike Penix loved the quarterback gameplay. Great players, got an excellent receiver, right? They have a good team, but I don't think they have the firepower when you get to the depth, okay, of the team.
Bro, you're wrong, dude.
You think they have the depth? You really think that Washington has the backups to come into the play like we do with Alabama and Michigan and Ohio State and all these major teams? I think they're going to have injury problems. I don't think they're going to be able to compete at a high level long enough to play against Michigan.
It's one game, bro. That's number one. Number two, Texas is a massive Power 5 school that's got loads of resources that far exceed Washington, right? And they're a top 20 defense in the country as well. And what did I say on Friday? That it was going to be a shootout and that Michael Penix should have won the Heisman. And guess what? I think everyone saw yesterday that Michael Penix Jr. should have won the Heisman. He dismantled a Power 5 defense and just threw all over him, ran all over him. Now, do I think he can do that to Michigan? It's going to be harder. But
There's no chance. But to say
that there's no chance is incredibly wrong. This guy is auditioning for the number one pick in the draft right now. And he went from third round yesterday to first round. And in 1 week from yesterday, he has a chance to go to the number one overall pick. If he goes in there and dominates Michigan and throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, he'll be the number one pick in the draft.
No, if he goes in, I'll just tell you this. If they just beat Michigan, if Washington just beats Michigan,
NFL evaluators don't care. NFL evaluators do not care about the outcome of the game. Otherwise, Drake May would not be the projected number 2 pick in the draft. They don't care.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Because listen, without these wins right now, this quarterback, he's good. The receiver they have, number 1, is great. I think it's Uzumi. I don't know how to pronounce the name.
He's a first-round receiver. Guess what? He's going to have receivers like that in the NFL throwing to. So that's not a knock. That's a positive, right? Here's the thing about you have to really look at the tape. And nuanced is, do you understand football? Do you really know what you're looking at? Michael Penix is not just throwing the ball to wide open guys down the field. No, he is pinpoint accuracy, laser passes, flexible, can read the defense, moving all over the pocket, knows when to run, knows when to slide. The guy proved yesterday he is a dude. Like, they're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes at this point.
This is getting upset. Okay, you're saying Michael Penix, the quarterback for Washington, is being compared to Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I saw it this morning. They're comparing him college.
I got nothing against making, remarks like, "Hey, this guy is in the making of the building blocks of something great." What I got a problem with is when all of a sudden these quarterbacks start getting compared. Listen, you could say, which Jim Harbaugh did say, okay, in an interview he had at the press conference after the game with Michigan, he said, "Look, J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback to ever play at Michigan." Now, obviously, Tom Brady went to Michigan.
Tom Brady played at Michigan,
right,
bro.
But he corrected himself.
Jim Harbaugh played at Michigan too, and he was one of the best quarterbacks.
But he corrected himself, and he said, now, Tom Brady is the GOAT making laps around people, but at Michigan, just talking about the gameplay at Michigan, he thinks J.J. McCarthy was the best. Before we finish up on Michigan-Washington, I want to pull this clip up. I want you guys to listen to this interview, J.J. McCarthy after the game.
You just won the Rose Bowl, man, in overtime, taking down an Alabama team. I know this wasn't easy. How are you guys able to get it done in a game that was such a back-and-forth chess match?
We knew it was going to be a dogfight. We knew it was going to be a chess match. So I think the preparation throughout the entire month, and especially this week when we got here, was just, dialed into an absolute T.
I asked Donovan this question that I'll ask you. We have watched you look at Georgia celebrate. We've watched you watch TCU celebrate. Yeah. You've made a promise to be back.
This guy surprised a lot of people, Brent.
To be back here to get the win and now to go to the national championship.
Including myself. I'm not saying he's the greatest.
That's what I could say about how it feels.
But he surprised a lot of people.
Those moments where, we're at our lowest.
When you're around a lot of these quarterbacks like this, these high profile, these blue chip quarterbacks, which I've been blessed to have access to, they all are very similar to this.
He's had a lot of historic touchdowns.
They're well spoken. They're good guys. They're smart. They're mature beyond their years. This doesn't surprise me. Brandon, my question.
You said something really important right there. What you just said is so important that it surprises people when you hang out and you're in the Division I level, mostly the top quarterbacks, top 25 teams. They're so well coached, so well set up and prepared, not just for the game, but for interviews, the conversation. They get smarter. They learn that they're a leader. I mean, this is really important. And I think people watching this right now, if you're in the chat, comment along here, Michigan or Washington. If you think Michigan or Washington win the finals, that's what we're talking about here. But Brent, I agree with you. Before you keep going, that is so important. These quarterbacks have to level up. And they're 18, 19, 20 years old. And then the seniors, obviously, you have some 21, 22s. But these guys are typically really young. And they're speaking pretty well.
This is a topic for another day, which we can dive into, but I'm telling you, dude, these kids are trained from a very young age, and by the time they reach this level, they are so well regimented, and they are right on, just like what you said. Like you don't make it this far unless you've been coached and trained like that. So my question for you though, Brandon, here to end this segment is, you got Michigan just trouncing Washington. Is that where you're landing here?
What I have in this game, this is exactly straight put on here, like right on paper what I believe and what I see in the game tape. Washington is a very good football team. They happen to be, 14-0? So they're pretty damn good.
Yeah.
They beat everyone in front of them. They just got tested probably at the highest talent, this is where they are. I still believe the two best teams realistically are Alabama and Michigan. I hate that they had to play each other because that set it up where it's going to be Texas or Washington. I think what you wanted to see was Texas, and Alabama in the rematch. I think that's what you wanted. But I really think Michigan, they're a good football team. They have great coaching. They have a lot going on. They have a great fan base, great organization. I think them playing against Washington in the first two quarters can be kind of close because I think they're both good football teams. I think when you get to the backups, when you get to the depth that you have, and I'm not knocking Washington at all. They've been a great university. They're growing. They're building. I just don't think that Washington has enough depth to stay well-conditioned to be in the game long enough to finish out against Michigan. They had some injuries yesterday. The running back went out hurt. Yeah. Receivers are getting hurt. Every team has injuries. I just don't think Washington can sustain a great level of football against a powerhouse team at Ann Arbor, a team that comes from that location. I just don't think they're going to match up well. The ratings will still be good because people want to see Penix play. He grew on this. I just don't think they have enough firepower in the depth of the team to play against Michigan.
Here's what I think. I think you're wrong. I think that yes, they don't have the depth of rated talent all the way from top to bottom that Michigan has, but I don't think it's going to matter that much in this game. So here's what's going to happen. This is going to be a fun game to watch, right? It's going to be explosive. Washington's going to hang in there. They're going to score points. The defense that they're going to see is the number one defense in the country. They've not seen anything like it before. So it's going to be tough slugging, but Penix is going to prove himself. Michigan's going to win this game. I want Michigan to win this game, but I guarantee you this is not going to be last year 65-3 or whatever the heck that thing was, right? This is going to be a good game. It's going to be a fun game to watch. It might even come down to the last few minutes. Michigan's going to be national champion, and then I'm going to be a very happy guy. And it might be Michigan Monday. I don't know.
Well,
we'll have to wait.
Well,
it could be Michigan Tuesday. That's
you
what
haven't really talked about that a lot. I mean, obviously, live in Texas, Buffalo fan, grew up north. I mean, Detroit. I mean, seriously, you haven't really talked about enough about Michigan, about being the backbone of your what you love, and you haven't really talked about that. You kind of pretty much said that Alabama's probably going to win, and I kind of felt the same way. I didn't think that they would be able to handle the full game. But
I'm not here to tell you who I want to win. I'm here to tell you who I think will win and why.
Fair enough.
And I told you I thought Alabama and Texas would win, but that I wanted Michigan and Washington to play because I thought it would be fun. And now we get the fun matchup. So I was right. I got what I wanted, not what I thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're watching this right now, put in the chat Washington or Michigan. Pick your team, Michigan or Washington. Put in the chat right now. And don't forget, Howard, put the link up there. You can call in anytime you want during the show now. We're going to put the link up for you right now in the chat. At the top of the chat, it'll be pinned up there. You'll be able to call in anytime to the show. We'll let you guys come in and dabble. We don't have to wait till the end anymore. It will be in the chat right now. It'll be pinned to the top. You can call in and give your input on what you think about the Washington-Michigan game or Alabama, whatever you want to talk about when you call in. We might have a question for you as well to make some money. So that's where I'm at, Michigan, Alabama right now. But before we do that, before people start calling in, let's do this. Let's talk about Alabama. And real quick, I want to pull this clip up. Look at how he walks off the field. Thank you to Andrew Sports Medicine providing the clip to us. I mean, look, this is detrimental. And with the name Jalen in the NFL and college right now, that's a special name because everybody named Jalen in the NFL and the colleges have been great. I mean, look at this. This feels terrible. You see 52 right here saying, look, man, I got your back. He's walking off. This is a terrible feeling for a star quarterback, obviously, at the height of his career in Alabama, playing to get himself to the national championship game. Jalen Milroe, hats off to him. He played well, played strong, not well enough to win. Michigan just had a lot of core strength in the center there. He left it all on the field, had a great, fourth quarter, getting down there. They were up, they were winning the game. And Michigan just had enough to pull it out. We can't forget the running back, Blake, has played great also. Anybody wants to call in right now, the link is in the chat, pinned to the top. You can call in, you can talk right now about any of the topics, and we're going to move on as we continue that conversation. So here, let me see, let's move on to the next part. If Howard, you can slide that. I want to see that quick list right there. Here we are. Okay, so Brent, what I want to talk about next, FSU. This was detrimental to college football. All the players that opted out to play, and it wasn't just FSU. Why it's concerning for FSU.
Oh, that's hilarious.
This is why it's concerning. They wanted to be in the top 4 so bad.
Yeah.
And arguably they probably should have been, just like Washington.
Yeah.
But were they going to opt out? Because if they were probably right where they need to be or further. Because if you're not going to play your players, and I get it, go into the league next year, let's sit out, let's prepare for our future. I get it. That's great. It's smart. It's wise. You did what you had to do. Great. But if you're not going to be in the game, what is the reason to put you to even have what was it, 63 to what? I mean, it was a blowout. That was terrible to watch. And people watching bowl games, honestly, were not happy about that either.
Yeah, so Brandon, look, it was like I could just view it. It was like a middle school lunchroom decision here where Florida State coach Mike Norvell got it with a friend. They didn't include us in the thing. So what can we do that's the most immature thing possible? I got it. Let's just not have any of our players play and make a joke out of this bowl game, which is what they did. So I'm going to tell you this, and this will shock you and probably people listening. Florida State's top 2 quarterbacks, top 2 running backs, top 2 receivers, starting tight end, 3 defensive linemen, 2 starting O-linemen, and both starting defensive backs sat out this game. Their entire starting lineup said,
come on, Brent.
No, it's because the coach wanted to intimidate the NCAA. He wanted to prove a point that they screwed up. So he encouraged the players to do what
really? So the coaches are partially at fault of this.
I'm telling you, Mike Norvell influenced the players to do what was best for them. And dude, it's just the wrong example for kids. It is just completely look, we didn't get our way, so what are we going to do? We're going to throw a big hissy fit and walk away. No, what you should have done is said, guys, life isn't fair. We got screwed. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to band together as a family. Yeah. We're going to beat the pants off of Georgia.
Agreed.
And we're going to show them they were wrong. That's not what he chose to do. And he is wrong for doing that, because he could have made this an incredible life learning lesson for these young men, and instead he showed them the wrong way to handle the situation. He should never have allowed that, and he certainly should have encouraged it.
If you're watching this right now, put in the chat where you're at. What state are you in? I want to see if you guys are watching where you're at as we get started with the New Year's. A lot of people are still traveling, so people will start coming in and out. And you can call in right now. Remember, the link at the top of the chat, you can click, you can call in, you can talk right now live, and people can hear you talking. So, Brent, I agree with you. I don't know how much he influenced it or if he influenced it directly. I don't have that information, but I think that's concerning. And I think what he did was also to push to get what's going to change for next year. It's already happening, though. We already know the changes are coming for 12 teams next year in NCAA football. So at the end for the playoffs and all that. So I don't think that was necessary, but I do think instead of people going, man, Florida State should have been there, instead they said, they weren't that good because they got beat and the players weren't even in. If they would have played and they would have beat Georgia, people would have been talking about Florida State 13-0, 14-0 for a very long time.
That's why I don't know why the coach in the school went this direction and let these kids do this. I mean, look, this is not one of 2 things happened, which I'm pretty convinced the coach in the school allowed them to do this and probably even encouraged them to do this, because there's no way that these kids would have unified like that. And all of your scholarship players, they only had 29 scholarship players playing in that game, right? They
29 scholars.
In the game, that's all that played. That's all that's suited up.
That's terrible.
No, dude, they let them. I'm telling you, man, it was a decision made by the school to do that, and I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. I think you could have used it as a learning lesson. I think you could have done it for future recruits, man. If I'm recruiting against Florida State, I'm like, look, do you want Mr. or Mrs. Mommy Daddy of this recruit? Do you want your coaches to be sore losers like that? Of course
That's
not.
a big point. And listen, I forgot. Before, I know we're at FSU right now. I apologize. I had an image to pull up here for Nick Saban because, I mean, real quick,
well, you didn't let me talk about Alabama either.
Is he? Yeah, I want to say something. Is he moving on? I know we're on FSU, but is he moving on? Does Nick Saban, is he want to come back and keep coaching? Is he ready? He said before,
Brandon.
his team, his players do not realize how important this game was, how significant it was. Do you think that Nick Saban is on his way out of Alabama?
This is as silly as suggesting that Mike Tomlin is going to get fired. No, Nick Saban is not on his way out. He has got the greatest job on the planet. And by the way, he's in the whole political mix of the whole NIL stuff too. He is not going anywhere.
Hey, I just want to mention,
he is.
I just want to mention John in the chat right now. John is lighting up the chat, and he's talking about Michigan, loves Michigan. Apparently, he thinks Michigan is going to blow out Washington. He called it against Alabama. He's in the chat right now, leaving a bunch of messages. Let us know. And John, listen, you should call in. A lot of people will start jumping in here and talking. Guys, if you're in the chat right now, comment and talk to John. Let him know who's going to win, Michigan or Washington. Put your thoughts in there and talk with John because he's lighting it up. And John, you can call in right out the top of the screen. It should be pinned up there. Howard, if it's still there, pin the message for John to call in.
John, you should call in so that we can sing the Michigan theme song together to Brandon. That's what we need to do this morning. Hail to the Vic. Come on, John. I need some help here. As you can tell, I'm not going to be on American Idol anytime soon. And that's depends on what you think my age is between 60 and 40.
We don't know. The below average white guy does not have an age at this point. So let's move real quick. Let's move on to this. The playoff picture right now, guys. You're in the chat. Talk to John. He's lighting it up for us. Wants the show to expand and talk about what's happening. Now, real quick, here is the playoff picture right now. Who's
talking
in
NFL playoffs, right?
Yes. Who's in right now? Right? Here's what we're looking at. Ravens, Dolphins, Chiefs, Browns, and on the other side, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, Eagles, and Rams. By the way, which is very hard to find because people, as you're watching this, looking up who's really and who's not is like the hardest thing to find. You click on it, you got to go to NFL.com and find that because if you don't, there's a 50 million brackets. Now,
I got a great graphic here that shows who's in and who's out and who's on the hunt and who's in the bubble. So I can go through this whole thing for you. And the NFC, it comes down to the 49ers are the number 1 seed that's locked in. If Dallas wins, they're the 2 seed. And they will likely play either Green Bay or Tampa or Seattle or New Orleans, one of those 3, whoever ends up getting in, right? So, and then the North winner will play Philly, and then the Rams will play Detroit, and that'll be a hell of a game. And so, the playoffs are you're looking at probably a Final Four of San Francisco versus Philly and Dallas versus Detroit or the Rams. It's going to be good.
So look, this is who you're looking at right now. But listen, these are the teams that have clinched a playoff spot.
Correct.
Right? So Ravens at the top, Dolphins, Chiefs, those are tough teams still. That's a tough bracket. On the other side, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, very tough, very tough. I like it. Now, Howard, pull up for us the teams that are right now in the hunt. Okay, here we go. Why is this significant? Because these teams are also in a pretty good position. And when I look at this, Jaguars, Bills, that's what I want to talk about the most. I think the Jaguars and the Bills, they got something to prove. But the Bills, Brent, to your defense, more important, the Bills are the team that people have to watch out for. If they could get into the playoffs, it would be very interesting.
they can miss the playoffs, and ironically, they can miss it because of the Steelers, which would be very funny.
You love it.
Show.
The Steelers, man.
So here's what's going to happen. Buffalo, so the schedule came out, which is awesome. So, Brandon, what they do is they don't announce the times of the games for the last season. They wait to see the final standings, and then they try to put games. They say they try to put them so that you can't have an advantage. You don't know what's won, so it's kind of like you're playing and you don't actually know the outcome yet, right? But then, of course, what do? They put the best games in prime time, which just totally dismisses all of that. So the last game of the season, the last game of the NFL season, Sunday Night Football, is Buffalo at Miami. That's it. That's the last game of the season. And if Buffalo wins, they're the number 2 seed.
That's a game.
Period. Number 2 seed, Buffalo wins. If Buffalo loses and Pittsburgh and Jacksonville wins, Buffalo's out of the playoffs.
I got to tell you.
Literally,
this is a big game. This is going to be one of the most watched games of the year is Buffalo-Miami. I promise you.
It'll be good. It all depends on what happens because they didn't have these games all at the same time. Saturday.
Is it away or home? Is it in Buffalo?
It's in Miami.
Okay, that changes a lot.
Yeah, it makes it, the weather and the conditions will be more
that changes a lot.
Yeah, so the interesting is the first game, which is Saturday afternoon, is Baltimore versus Pittsburgh. Now, I want to talk about this for a minute, Brandon, and get your thoughts.
Hey, Howard, drop the link in the chat for the guys to be able to call in, pin it to the top.
Pittsburgh needs to win this game. If they win and Buffalo loses, they can get in the playoffs if they win this game. Okay, here's the deal. Baltimore has no motivation. In fact, John Harbaugh is already saying he doesn't know if Lamar Jackson is going to play. So he may sit Lamar Jackson in a game where Pittsburgh has to win, which provides Pittsburgh with a huge advantage. And I don't think that that's fair. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. And I'll tell you one other thing real quick. The Ravens have been in this situation once before. A couple of years ago, they did this, and they were in the same situation. Guess what they did, Brandon? They rested their players. They got the bye, and then they got smoked in the first round of the playoffs.
You know what? So, the Ravens are, to me right now, the Ravens are hot. They're playing tough. And Flowers, Beckham, obviously Beckham is not the OBJ from the Giants era. We talked about that. But
would not rest.
OBJ is going to be that little receiver they have, the guy you could dump the ball to. Flowers is playing well. Lamar Jackson, the defense is playing tough. They got a good football team right now. I don't know if they can beat teams like the Bills, to be honest with you, but it's going to be a hell of a playoff ride. But I want to move on to the refs, Brent, because this was a conversation that people were so pissed off about, the 2-point conversion with the Lions and the Cowboys.
Do you want me to explain this situation here? All right, so end of the game, Lions tie the game with whatever it is, 23 seconds left, right? Well, no, they don't tie. So instead of going for the extra point and tying and taking in the overtime, Dan Campbell, the Lions coach, says, I'm going to go for the win. So they run this play, and the left tackle caught a pass, as you saw, to win the game. Oh, no, there's a penalty, a legal touching penalty. Now, what happened here is very simple. The refs say that the guy who caught the ball did not declare as an eligible receiver, all right? And the ref, before the play, announced the eligible receiver as another guy. But here's the problem with that. All the video evidence shows the guy walking up to the ref and saying, I'm in, pointing at himself, and the ref nodding and giving him a thumbs up and going, I got it. And then walking away and
watching
not
this
saying
clip,
the right thing.
Watching this clip is like, not to mention, I believe the refs got fired the next day.
No, they didn't get fired. They got demoted. They're no longer allowed. They were in the playoff rotation. They are out of the playoff rotation. But
oh my God! So the refs
Brandon.
So the refs in the game are not fired. They are demoted, so they cannot participate in playoff action as a referee.
Dude,
that's
they
what you're
botched
saying.
this. They botched this massively. The guy did what he was supposed to do. The ref acknowledged it, and for whatever reason, now Brandon, I'm gonna throw some conspiracy in here for you. This is why, Brandon, I don't think gambling and the NFL go well together. Now you'll say, hey, the guy made a human mistake. There's no way. Okay, let's take that on its own. But now let me add in a few little extra facts for you. Okay, this is now the third time he's manipulated the end of the game. Do you remember a couple weeks ago
the
when
same
Mahomes?
ref?
Yes, same crew. Do you remember when the Chiefs lost to the Packers and Mahomes was driving down the field and he threw the ball to Valdez-Scantling and the guy was like hugging him and it was clear pass interference?
Yes.
And they didn't call it and the Chiefs lost? Guess what? Brad Allen's crew was the crew of that game.
So you're saying the same exact ref is participating in possible gamble conversations? Or are you saying that people are going to say that?
There's another one. I got another one for you. When the Dolphins played the Eagles a couple weeks ago, the Dolphins had 10 penalties called against them in the game. 10. Do you know how many penalties the Eagles had them called against them in the entire game, Brandon? Zero.
No, zero penalties in the whole game?
Zero penalties called in that
Speaking of
game.
the
I am
Eagles,
telling you, dude, there's a reason why the NFL is doing what they're doing. It's not because they're reacting to the fans. It's because they smell what we all smell. These guys are openly fixing games.
I mean, so we're not saying the NFL's doing it. We're just saying refs.
No.
Yeah, we're not. Just you watch this right now, YouTube and NFL Network. Brendan's not saying the NFL is doing this. What he's saying is people influencing the game. Refs.
Brad Allen's probably got a large bill with a bookie he needs to pay off.
Speaking of the Eagles, Jalen Hurts. Okay, they got beat again, Brent, and they didn't get beat by a powerhouse team. They didn't get beat by a team that people are like, oh, that was a close game. They just beat the Giants. They should have blew them out, and they should have blew out the Cardinals. And they got beat by Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray running around looks like a toddler running quarterback sneaks. I mean, literally, Jalen Hurts now, they're starting to have a lot of chatter about, is he that good? I think Jalen Hurts is great. But the conversation now is like, is Jalen Hurts that good? Is the coach that good? They're starting to have a lot of these conversations, not because they lost, Brent, but because they got beat by the Cardinals. If they got beat by the Bills or the Chiefs or the Cowboys, people could move on and fight another day. Let's head to the playoffs. Let's prepare. When you get beat by the Cardinals, you just barely beat the Giants, and we're like, hey, we're going to the playoffs to play against the best teams in the National Football League. That's a problem this year heading into 2024, new year, playoff football, big-time football. Jalen Hurts has to be prepared, and the Eagles look a little out of focus still right now.
Yeah, former Steelers running back James Conner had a game, and he just destroyed the Eagles. Here's the problem, Brandon. Are the Eagles one of the 5 or 6 teams that Brent thinks can win the Super Bowl? Yeah, I still think they are. Here's the problem.
You got them in your top 5.
They're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be turning it on at the end of the season. You can have your slow period at the beginning or the middle of the season. They're having their hiccups and their slow period at the exact incredible wrong time. Every team in the NFL goes through this during the course of an 18-week season. Okay, it's natural and it happens to some degree difference. They're really going through it right now, but they're also really going through it at the wrong time.
Going through it, Brent. Through it would be, hey, we have an injury. Hey, oh my God, we have an issue.
Brandon,
maybe the quarterback.
Yeah,
this is a problem. Getting beat by the Cardinals is amazing. The Cardinals are like 3-9 or 4-12.
The Bills lost to the Broncos because they had 12 men on the field. Like, that is like the most ridiculous mistake you could possibly make. These teams, they go through these periods where they lose it. But here's the thing, the Bills, the Rams, these teams are the Steelers. These teams are turning it on. By the way, Steeler fan, if you're watching, I've got it on the hit list for tomorrow to talk about Steelers, what they're doing.
The Steelers are going to come back with a vengeance for Brent tomorrow.
Back too. I'm telling you, like, These teams are clicking at the right time. The Eagles are just going the wrong direction at the right time.
I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles. You know my problem with Jalen Hurts. We already voiced that. The emotion is gone. He's got like no interest. Like he is either so laser focused where he is so in this tunnel vision, or he keeps the same face, or he's kind of checked out a little bit. Because
you know what you're setting up here? You know what's setting up here? It's setting up for Baker Mayfield to win a playoff game. That's what's setting up. Because they're gonna play Philly in Tampa, and it's setting up that Tampa's gonna win that game.
I don't like Baker Mayfield as that. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback at all. But I think Baker Mayfield has excitement, morale, energy. When they win, he's fired up. When they lose, he's pissed off. You need that. You need that for your team to feel how much you have in this. You can't always be so much such a leader that you're just really up here and not enjoying it with your team. And now play by play, maybe not. But when something happens, you got to erupt and let your team know you're so passionate about this game. And I think Baker Mayfield does do that. Even though I don't think he's the best quarterback, I agree with you. The Eagles better be careful because that could be a possibility. But let's move on to Buffalo because you love the Bills. And I want to talk about the guy who's the main ingredient for the Bills. This is your guy, Brent, right?
Oh, of course. This is my Jim Kelly right here. This is my guy.
Which, by the way, we got to get Jim Kelly on here. And if you're watching, you can call in anytime. There's a link that goes into the chat. We'll paste it again right now. I know a lot of people, you get leery about it. We have a question for you. If you call in, make $100 if you get it right. There is a link right there. It'll be pinned to the top. You can click on it. You can call in anytime.
I'm worried about this guy, though. Like, this guy, I don't know if you watched that game. I obviously did. This guy did not dominate that game, right? Buffalo won that game because Bailey Zappi threw 4 interceptions in like the first quarter. So but Josh Allen did not play well again. That's 2 weeks in a row that he's not played well. So hopefully he figures it out and they're ready. They obviously need to beat Miami. And then if they want to go on a run, but Josh Allen has not been at that level. But here's the point. If Josh Allen comes out and dominates against Miami, he could still be in the MVP running. That's what's crazy about this season.
I'm a fan of Josh Allen, and I was years ago, and then he got into it with Diggs a little bit, or something happened where they had something behind the scenes was not good. I'll just say that. I don't know exactly what happened, but it wasn't good. Josh Allen, Diggs, some of the best football you can have in a duo have on your team. They had an issue, and I'm like, whoa, this has been countless years now, 2 or 3 years where they should have been in. I think we have a caller in right now coming on in. All right, who's calling in right now? See if it's connected. Are you there?
All right, who we got? We got somebody. All right, this is great.
His name is Vince the Lawyer.
Vince the Lawyer.
Vince, are you in?
He's connecting, it says. He's got to figure that out. But So yeah.
Yeah, when Vince gets in, talk when you're in, Vince. Say something so we know you're in.
Yeah, well, Vince is connecting once he gets connected, but I do want to tell you something about this.
I figured it out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, bro.
Which one of you guys is the good-looking one?
What was the question, Vince?
Which one of you guys is the good-looking one?
Vince, bro, so good to have you on the show. You know who the good-looking one is.
Yeah, it's
hard to tell from looking at you two.
Yeah, Vince, do you agree that I look better in low def? I mean, that's the general consensus here.
100%. Brandon, what the hell happened last night with Coach Harbaugh calling a timeout with 12 seconds left in the game and the clock was running? Did you see that?
That was bizarre.
I don't get what these coaches at this point are doing. I think they have so much on their plate, legit on their plate, and then they're trying to scramble, make things happen, and they're not perfect either. But it's so confusing as to who's making that call from the upstairs, or is it him? Brent, right?
So can you explain to everyone what actually happened there? Because it was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. So what happened at the end of the game is there was like whatever they kneeled out the ball, and the first time the other team, I can't, sorry, Alabama. I'm losing my mind here. Alabama called a timeout, right? Then they kneeled the ball down again, and that was it. Vince is right. That was the end of the game. And for whatever reason, Michigan called a timeout. And they were right on the 1 yard line. So they had to really push in and then kneel again. So I think what happened, Vince, is I think they got confused. I don't know why. I think there was some confusion. I think somebody wasn't paying attention. I'm not exactly sure what happened. But obviously there was a miscommunication on the Michigan side because Harbaugh was yelling about it. Like, he was yelling about, like, something wasn't right. Like, why is there a timeout? You know, whatever. So they just kneeled again, and they had enough space to get it in. But it was nerve-wracking.
Vince, what's going on, man? What's going on? You're based in New York, right? You're still in New York?
Still in New York, Brandon. I have a live show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 noon. Channel's growing, not as big as yours yet, but I'm glad to see you're back on the air.
Yes. Listen, we've been trying to do this for a while. We've been building this thing, and then we slowed up. I just got Brent here, co-host of the show. We're live every day, Monday through Friday. We're excited to keep expanding, and this year into the new year, we have live interviews and guests. We won't say their names yet until they're live and signed here and mentioned in. But so, Vince, question while I got you here. Have you ever seen the show before?
I've watched a bunch of shows, Brandon, so what's the question?
You've seen these clips here before on the live?
Not the clips that you've showed so far yet.
Okay. So we won't ask him that question. Here's what we'll do. Vince, not that you need it because you're an attorney and you're a beast in New York. For $100 to your account right now, who won the Super Bowl? You got 5 seconds to answer the question. Who won the Super Bowl 2 years ago?
Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys.
I have no idea.
Cowboys haven't won the Super Bowl in 30
the hardest
years.
question, like, people cannot figure out when you make people go back a year or two.
Dude,
it is so
Vince,
freaking hard.
Vince, I live in Dallas, Vince. You remind me of the people here, like, yeah, the Cowboys are the Super Bowl Dude, there were still VHS tapes when you last won the Super Bowl. I mean, it was like 30 years ago, bro.
Oh, my
That's
God.
the worst guess. You would have had a better guess if you said the Buccaneers.
We're going to bring Vince live on the show. Vince, so tell us real quick, who do you got, Michigan or Washington?
I say Washington, guys, and they look a lot better than Michigan does. Do you know the history of Coach Harbaugh recently relating to how he met his trophy wife?
Tell us.
Oh, no, we'd love to hear this.
It's a cool story because, Brandon, he was married to his first wife, and then he wanted to upgrade naturally. He was drunk at a P.F. Chang's bar. And this is all true. Now, a girl goes and gets a pickup order at the P.F. Chang's bar. You know, you order ahead, and she picks it up. She takes her order, goes to the parking lot. It's night out. The Coach Harbaugh follows her into the parking lot. It's
Very
dark.
Classy. That's a good move.
Demands her phone number. Demands it. And she finally gives it to him. I mean, this is because she was scared. Then he calls her, stalks her for the next 4 weeks, keeps calling and calling. Now, she had no idea who this guy was. She figures there's some drunk following me out into the parking lot. So, Brandon, after 4 weeks, she finds out who he is. And eventually, all that harassment pays off. And they start to date. And then they eventually get married. And so if you see Coach Harbaugh, just remember, he met his second wife, that trophy wife, drunk at a P.F. Chang's, and then stalked her into the parking lot and did not, he refused to let her leave until she took his number.
Yeah. So Vince, first of all, that's called courting, right? I mean, obviously it ended with that was a happy ending, right? That wasn't anything bad that happened. I'm sure he didn't force her, and she could have easily given a fake number.
Hey, we don't know what happened right there.
Yeah,
so that
is a very animated story about Jim Harbaugh. Hey, there's a reason why he's a great coach, right? He's aggressive, and well, there you go, bro.
Hey, listen, speaking of this, we're gonna move on to the Ravens, but I want to say thank you to Vince. Vince, actually, at first I didn't realize who called in. Vince, thank you for calling in, bud. And when I saw the name, and Bessie, Vince connected me to a lot of opportunities on the show right now.
Awesome, Vince.
An attorney in New York City actually connected me, and I was live on the Howard Stern show. Thanks to Vince, made that connection. Thank you. And also a sports agent in New York City.
That's true. And also, by the way, I see, now, Brandon, you don't run into this issue, but for guys like us, sorry, I mean, your partner there doesn't run into this issue, but guys that are good looking like Brandon, they go out, they don't have issues getting girls, right? But we have to put the extra level. We have to put the extra harassment in order to finally get a girl. So harassment does sometimes pay off, Brandon.
Brent.
I do not condone that last statement.
Brent.
All right,
You know
guys.
what?
Good
I
luck
gotta
with the
tell
show,
you,
man. I'll call back.
During football, you could be in high def or low def.
Don't let that guy back on again.
If you play for Michigan or you play for Alabama or wherever you play for college football, same thing, and into the pros, you could be in high def or low def, and you don't even need any harassment. You just got to be careful that just in case someone doesn't say something that you didn't do, trying to get you in trouble, right?
Look, I got to say this, Brent. I wasn't making light of his situation. I'm just understating how he painted it as the guy like had her locked in an alley, right? I'm certain that's not how that played out. I'm sure.
Let's talk about the Ravens. Let's talk about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and let's talk about Tua, right? We'll let next caller come on when they come on. So, real quick, as we talk about this real fast, and people are that will keep calling in, the link is in the chat. You can hit the link and you can call in right now and talk live. Lamar Jackson and Tua. This was a combination of players. People said, look, who has a chance to be the MVP? Can Tua surpass Lamar Jackson if they win? That was obvious in the blowout against the Dolphins. People are like, well, yeah, Tua has a chance. Not really. Lamar Jackson, I got to tell you this, Brent. Lamar Jackson put on a show against the Dolphins. And just their team in general showed they are elite. I thought if they were at least close, heading in, this game, they can say going to the playoffs, okay, look, Ravens are okay, not that good. No, they showed they're a lot better, I think, than people believe. And Lamar Jackson is still the leading MVP now for several weeks, which has been teeter-tottering weekly until now.
Unfortunately, the MVP doesn't get decided based on playoff performances. So when Josh Allen beats Lamar Jackson, that won't actually play into it. But here's something I got to tell you about the Ravens. It's incredibly impressive. First of all, everyone thought Miami could be the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they absolutely dismantled them 56-19. Like, dude, that's not a competitive game. Like, in fact, they did the same thing to the 49ers. So they are just steamrolling everybody. But here's what you need to know, Brandon, that's incredibly important. The Ravens are one. It's a very rare situation. They're one of two teams, or they're one of a team that, like, here's the thing. They have both a top 2 defense and a top 2 offense. This rarely happens where you have the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense in the league. They are dominating everybody. Lamar, they have a point differential of 210 points positive. That means that if you take all the scores, they've won their games by 210. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like the next is like less than 100. I mean, it's crazy, right? Lamar had 5 touchdowns in week 17. He had a career high 457 passing yards. Like, he had 148 rushing attempts. Like, dude, that's the most he's had since a couple years ago, right? He's playing well. He's staying healthy. They're dominating, absolutely dominating everybody. And, we've talked about, I love the Bills. I love the Rams. I think they're playing well. I mean, if they don't slow down, if they keep this pace, they're just going to roll through this.
Hey, I want to say this. John made a mention in the chat. I was watching this, and I read it. It's true. This is a year for the Harbaughs, right? And people are talking about this. The Harbaugh family, they're doing things right now. The coaching, the morale. I mean, Jim Harbaugh fought through being suspended at Michigan for games.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like they're not fighting adversity. Like, he's not even there, and they're making it happen. They're winning games. They beat Alabama. They're beating. They're playing top-notch football at an elite level. And the Ravens are playing top-notch football at an elite level with great talent and making good off-season decisions. I mean, that's what's happening right now. And I think you have to give them even more credit to the organizations because they're rising to the top. And every single week now, I started thinking, Michigan's not that good. Wow, they are that good. Then, but now they're playing Alabama. Oh, well, Saw what happened there. And yeah, Alabama made a lot of mistakes in the game, but the defense of Michigan caused all those mistakes. You get messed up as a center. You make mistakes when you're getting beat on plays. And so that's a credit to Michigan for beating them. But I'll just tell you this, the Harbaugh family is very happy right now. And the Ravens, that conversation was about him potentially going and coaching in the NFL. What if the Harbaughs are coaching on the same NFL team, bro? Can you imagine you got Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh on the same coaching staff for the Ravens? How funny that would be. And that's not that he would need to do that because he can go to his own team.
That might happen in like 10 years when they're both at the end of their careers and they're kind of like, yeah, let's do something fun. Let's coach together.
Why not? They made plenty of money, but
they might do that. But they're not going to do that right now. That's for sure.
Hey, before we close out this day and live segment, remember, you can still call in real quick and say what you got to say. A lot of people are sending me messages here. And guys, because we don't have a phone number on the screen for you to call in and talk, it's a link in the chat. I get a lot of messages here saying, hey, how do I call in? It's a link in the chat. You press a link and you can call in. You'll be connected right by the production team right now to say what you got to say. But Brent, yeah, like I said, look, just to finish out today's live segment and people watching this into the new year, it's been a roller coaster ride. And usually it's easy and clear cut to see. These are the top 3 teams in the AFC. Top in the AFC. This is pretty much dominant. And now this year, you're like, the Rams, if the Rams get into the playoffs or the Bills get into the playoffs, if they even get into the playoffs, you're like, they could win a Super Bowl. And that's just so confusing compared to years ago. Like Patrick Mahomes is not doing what he typically does. The Chiefs are not that powerhouse team. So who's the powerhouse team outside the Ravens? Do you think that's already in the playoffs? They're already in the playoffs.
Yeah, here's what we'll do on Monday. This will be fun. Once the playoff seedings are set, we should talk about who actually has a chance to win a Super Bowl. And I think we'll probably have 4 or 5 teams that could actually win the Super Bowl. And so I think that'll be a good conversation.
And we'll have people call in. And last look at this before we close out the show, Brent. Howard, toggle back to us the teams that already have clinched the playoffs. So here we are, real quick, before we get out of the show here today. These are the teams that we're going to talk about throughout the week to see who has an opportunity to really get to the Super Bowl. And what do you guys think about the current playoff picture, Brent? That's where we are heading into the week, and we're going to talk about the Steelers.
All right, dude.
Brent, it's so great to have you every day at 10 o'clock, 10 to 10:30-ish. There was a lot to talk about today, from college football to the NFL. I know Brent wants to get into some women's sports throughout the week as well, but we are going to make sure that we focus in on what's happening this week in the NFL.
That's right, man. This is a big week, the college football playoff. It's exciting. We're going to have fun, and all I have to say is keep it in low def, and you'll have a great visual viewing experience. Do not upgrade to HD. I don't know why everyone wants it in HD. I think I look just fine in low def.
Brent, so good to have you, buddy. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Thanks, Brandon.
Guys, thanks for tuning into the Brandon Mason Show. So happy to have you here live with my co-host, Brent Chapman. We have a lot to talk about, obviously. We're so thankful you're joining into the new year. Keep your resolutions strong this year. Don't give up the first week of January. Ride the wave out and make that success happen this year. That's the goal. Thanks for tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, 10 to 10:30-ish. And like I said, we'll be expanding to 11 because we always run over into that gap. And remember, all your safe travels, I know all that's mostly done. And we'll see you tomorrow live, 10 o'clock. And always, thanks again. And until next time.